When we think of great Hitchcock films, there's a top 5 situation that most of the time contains Vertigo, Psycho, North by Northwest, Rear Window, and The Birds. Sometimes Shadow of a Doubt and Notorious will slip in there, as well as Strangers on a Train, Rebecca and the 39 Steps. But that kind of top 5 is like the generic hip-hop top 5s you hear all the time after time after time. Biggie or Tupac at number 1 or 2. This is followed by a Jay-Z, Andre 3000, and some mildly obscure choice at number 5 to prove that the list maker isn't just some mainstream cornball. But I hate popular opinions, and sometimes I'll make a selection just to go against the grain and wind people up, but not when it comes to the opinion on the film Rope. You see, many top 10 films of all time lists are now topped by Vertigo, which does surprise me somewhat. I'm no hater of Vertigo, it's great, but compared to other films, often on the top slot, it's just a bit too far-fetched for my taste. I like my far-fetchedness to be found in the world of far-fetched. That's why I admire Seth Rogen films, where he has romantic relations with a woman. It's proper far-fetched fantasy land that plays within the realms of extreme possibilities. Rope, on the other hand, is real. The premise may be a little out there, but the truth of the film is as real as it gets. The technical execution and the theme is why I consider it a masterpiece. Without the theme and truth, it would just be a very impressive and innovative film for its time. Rope is a film that has a reputation for technicality that overshadows the very true and important theme that underlines it. It's famous for being a one-take film, set in one location, practically in just one room. It's all the more impressive because it never bores and constantly delivers suspense. Now little boner boys will be screeching that it's not actually one shot. Yes, we know already. It does actually have some significant cuts, as well as some sneaky cuts made when the camera pushes into the backs of characters, fooling us into thinking it's still the same ongoing shot. This was done, as I understand it, because logistically it wasn't possible to shoot the entire thing in one, because film reels weren't big enough for that much footage. That's history for you. But again, this is a talking point I think that distracts people from the premise and the theme that sets this film apart. This is a film overlooked because of what some might say is a gimmick, a showboating of someone who has consistently bossed his craft decade after decade. The film is about two affluent New Yorkers committing what they believe is the perfect murder. But what actually enables them to justify the murder is what has always struck me. These boys believe they are superior beings and that the rules of the greater society do not apply to them because the majority of humanity are beneath them and don't offer as much to society as they do. And they strangle some poor schlub because of that delusion. This is the truest thing I've ever seen on film. Not just because it's become glaringly obvious that many people at the top of the pecking order in our society feel that way and don't even at least try to hide it, but because it's something that a great deal of us believe of ourselves, one way or another. Try to deny it, that's up to you, but we all see you, and you all see me, and we're all hiding in transparent closets, just like Tom Cruise.
7 o'clock in the morning, the rays from the sun wakes me up.
Just listen to this man.
Then may I ask, who is to decide that a human being is inferior and is therefore a suitable victim for murder?
The few who are privileged to commit murder.
And just who might they be?
Oh, myself. Philip. Possibly Rupert.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kenneth, you're out. Gentlemen, I'm serious.
So are we, Mr. Kentley. The few are those men of such intellectual and cultural superiority that they're above the traditional moral concepts. Good and evil, right and wrong, were invented for the ordinary average man, the inferior man, because he needs them.
Then obviously you agree with Nietzsche and his theory of the Superman.
Yes, I do.
So did Hitler.
Hitler was a paranoid savage. His Supermen, all fascist Supermen, were brainless murderers. I'd hang any who were left. But then you see, I'd hang them first for being stupid. I'd hang all incompetents and fools anyway. There are far too many in the world.
Then perhaps you should hang me, Brandon, for I confess I'm so stupid I don't know whether you're all serious or not. But in any case, I'd rather not hear any more of your forgive me, contempt for humanity and for the standards of a world that I believe is civilized.
Civilized?
Yes,
Perhaps what is called civilization is hypocrisy.
perhaps.
Well, I'm sure Rupert, fortunately,
Oh, now, gentlemen,
has
really,
the intelligence and imagination
Please,
to...
Brandon, I think we've had just about enough.
How often have you seen something on the idiot box or on the interweb and thought the very same thing? I see people clapping along to Ed Sheeran, laughing at James Corden's stick, and often think, these people are brainless idiots who should be drowned. Television has always been full of content that reaffirms our own self-deluded sense of superiority. Shows like Benefit Street allow us to look down our noses at these poor, useless maggots, swishing around in filth and drinking cider on benches when they should be at work, and we view this from a very comfortable and safe distance. You look at them and pity them and wonder, why on earth are they even bothering to stay alive? And let's face it, what exactly do they have to offer our society? All they do is take. This is why we love Jeremy Kyle and Jerry Springer. This is why African tribes enslaved and sold each other to the European slave traders. This is why vegans are so insufferable. They not only think they're superior to meat eaters, they also believe they're superior to animals because they, and only they, should decide an animal's fate. And the government? Well, of course they think they're superior, because you clearly can't be trusted to make any decisions and take responsibility for your own life. Otherwise, they'd just let you get on with it, wouldn't they? Some people look at the unvaccinated or the vaccinated and have equal amounts of disdain for one another. The vaccinated look down upon the other and think they should be rounded up into camps and stripped of all the rights the good society affords them, even food and clean water.
People who refuse to accept vaccines, I think the right response for them is not to force them to, but rather to insist that they be isolated.
Then there's those who are strongly opposed to the vaccines, looking down their noses at the vaccinated and berating them for being mindless, spineless sheep who literally clap at the sky because the government told them to. These sheep have nothing to offer society and are just useless entities who could be easily replaced by robots, and everyone would be none the wiser. And then there's me, looking down my nose on all of them, knowing in my superior brain that these idiots deserve to suffer together, and hopefully one day they will destroy each other completely and leave the earth to be freely roamed by myself and other like-minded demigods. I don't ever leave myself out the equation. I am as guilty as the rest of you. I just own it better.
Am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm fucking better than you, okay? Much better than you. You are garbage.
We're all guilty of thinking we're better than other people, and we're all guilty of hypocrisy when we condemn those that vocalize how they look down upon other people. James Stewart's character in Rope realizes this in the end. His disdain for those he considers to be intellectually challenged comes to manifest itself in the universe when two men who looked up to his intellectual prowess decided their intellectual superiority grants them the right to dispose of another human and taunt the victim's loved ones with a nice little party. These clowns take disrespect to new uncharted levels. On the surface, Rope could be about elitism and class, about how the rich and the affluent believe they can do as they please because of their standing in the pecking order of society. But it's just about elitism, intellectual elitism. Intellectual elitism has been a topic for contention for a long time, but it has experienced significant amplification in more recent times. There are those that have said if you speak of intellectual elites, this somehow makes you a problematic person who should be cast out to the fringes of society. The people who usually make these assertions are actually quite often intellectual elites, the self-appointed gatekeepers of truth and critical thought. It would be all well and good to say that people's disdain for intellectuals was harmful and unjustified if the intellectuals weren't so transparent about their abject hatred and disgust for the masses. Some intellectual elitists would happily round up the dumb masses and put them in a camp for purposes for re-education. One of those would be George Monbiot, who openly said people need to be re-educated. They do believe in their superiority and that anyone else who doesn't is guilty of being stupid, and such a crime should be punishable by death. Now, they don't quite go as far as strangling people and putting them in a box whilst their loved ones get fed champagne and caviar, but that's only because they respect the law too much. They happily kill people breathing, however, such as destroying livelihoods, closing down businesses, smearing reputations, and even stripping people for their right to even be able to use a payment facility like MasterCard or PayPal. These intellectuals are despicable, and perfectly represented in Rope as two sneering uni lads full of twisted ideas. And I, like many others, think that these horrid people should be rounded up also, but not to be put into a re-education camp because they are beyond repair, but just forced to conduct hard labor for the rest of time. Such a way of thinking therefore makes me no better than Pol Pot. Therefore I am firmly put in my place and chill the F out. I am just another person. I have no right to take life because I think someone is beneath me, nor is someone else to do the same to me who believes they are above me. James Stewart's character shows himself to be an amusing arsehole who takes pleasure in mocking that fat lady character who is completely unaware because she is a moron. There's no crime in being a moron, unless a moron is put in charge of something life-threatening. Then crimes will follow, and the excuse of being a moron never stands up in court. But maybe it should. It can be just as dangerous as being a paranoid schizophrenic. James Stewart shares the belief of the boys, but they somehow think this justifies murders. And it's the ending that nails it.
What do you mean?
I mean that tonight you've made me ashamed of every concept I ever had of superior or inferior beings. And I thank you for that shame. Because now I know that we are each of us a separate human being, Brandon, with the right to live and work and think as individuals, but with an obligation to the society we live in. By what right do you dare say that there's a superior few to which you belong? By what right did you dare decide that that boy in there was inferior and therefore could be killed?
Because James Stewart is a bit of an arsehole to these people, but it's for jokes. It is inherently evil, and that's what the two boys don't get. They're so consumed by their own ego that they don't believe that anyone could justifiably consider themselves superior to them, and therefore murder is the reserve for them and them alone. The takeaway is that you don't get to decide such things, no matter how ignorant or dangerous you consider others to be. Someone else can think the very same of you. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, is what it roughly says in the Bible. Intellectuals don't believe in God and snigger at the Bible, and that is why they are just so terrible at being good human beings. Then again, who am I to judge? I don't like the Bible either. Rope has a great message delivered by a great messenger. Hollywood, of course, would remake Rope, and they would give it a nice socialist messaging and get it all wrong, because they too have developed a disdain for the masses that made them rich. That's the only explanation for why they can't seem to make anything but shit. Please, actually forget please, this is a warning. Do not remake Rope. The Psycho remake was perfectly justified. It was nearly a masterpiece, but everyone would agree that it always lacked a crucial scene where Vince Vaughn choked his turkey whilst ogling at a naked lady through a peephole. I can let you off for that, but leave Rope alone. You wouldn't know what you're destroying because you're all idiots and you need re-education.